In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can use equations to solve word problems. And the only new thing today is that we are going to be writing the equations ourselves. After that, the process of solving the equation is exactly the same as what we've been working on the last few classes. This is all going to come down to being able to read a question, interpreting what it's saying, and knowing how that translates into the math. So we're going to be pulling a bit on our work with translating from Unit 4a. So our first question here, Anne took a taxi home from the airport. The taxi fare was $2.10 per mile, and she gave the driver a tip of $5. Anne paid a total of $49.10. And usually we have a question here. For this one it would be like, how many miles did she ride the taxi? Okay, so our question usually determines what our variable is. So you can pick, remember, any variable that you want. I'm going to use m for miles, so I know that my equation is going to have an m in it somewhere. Now we want to go back and look through the problem. So our taxi fare was $2.10 per mile. So this means to find the total cost for my distance, I'm going to take $2.10 and multiply it by the number of miles. So like if she drove 1 mile, it would be $2.10. 2 miles would be 2 times that, $4.20. 3 miles would be 3 times this, $6.30. So we're going to take the number of miles, m, and multiply it by the $2.10. So I'm going to put that in my equation here. She also gave the driver a tip of $5. Now the tip is just a one-time thing. We pay that at the end of the ride, and I'm going to add that on to the cost for my distance. So this is paying for the distance, that should be a D, and this is our tip for the service. And that's going to be equal to our total, which was $49.10. So now we have this equation that we want to solve. Go ahead and pause the video and see what you get for your solution. Alright, so we start by circling our variable group. We start outside the circle, we subtract 5 from both sides, and we get 2.10m equals 44.10. Remember that when we have the number next to the variable, this is multiplication. So we undo that multiplication with division, and we get m equals 21. Anytime we solve a word problem, we want to make sure we include the units with our answer, so we want to say 21 miles. For our next question, we're reading about Sam. Sam had $276 to spend on 7 books. After buying them, he had $17. We want to know, how much did each book cost? So again, we're going to start with our question here. So if we look at the number of books, that's going to be our, no, not the number of books, the cost of each book. So C is going to be the cost of 1 book. So we know that we had $276 to begin with. Then we spent money on 7 books. So if each book costs C dollars, the total cost for 7 books would be 7 times C. And if that's money that I'm spending, that's money that I'm taking away from the 276 that I had. So this is going to be 276 minus 7C. After buying them, I've got 17 left over. So I start with the $276. I take away the 7C, and that's going to be equal to $17, my leftover. Go ahead and pause the video and try and solve this equation. Alright, so for this one we have to be a little careful because our variable is to the left of our constant this time. So just want to be a little careful with that. We circle our variable group, including the negative sign with the 7. Remember, the coefficient of C is -7. We can't split those up. And I start by getting rid of the constant outside the circle. In order to make 276 0, I have to subtract 276 from both sides. And then everything in the circle, including that negative sign, woo, comes down. So we have -7C equals -259. Then remember that when I have a coefficient next to a variable, that means multiplication. So we undo that with division and we get 37. This means that the cost for 1 book is $37. All right. For our next question, Bethany spent half of her weekly allowance playing mini golf. To earn more money, her parents let her wash the car for $4. We want to know what is her weekly allowance if she ended with $12. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can write the equation for this problem. All right. So our question is, what is her weekly, oh my goodness. What is her weekly allowance? So that means that I'm going to need a variable to stand in for the weekly allowance. So I'm going to use the variable A. We know that she spent half of her weekly allowance playing mini golf. So I start with my weekly allowance. I'm going to take away half of that. So we're actually going to say, okay, we have half of our weekly allowance that we've spent on mini golf. We end up with $12 all at the end. Okay? If we spend half of our allowance, that means that we have half of it left. And so we also get $4 for washing the car, and at the end we're left with $12. So if I spend half, that means I have half left, plus the $4 from washing the car, and I end up with $12. Now we're going to solve this equation for A. Go ahead and pause the video and see what you get for your solution. Once we've got our equation, this is just like the problems we've been solving. We circle our variable group, start outside the circle, we undo addition of 4 with subtraction of 4, then we have division by 2, and we do the opposite, which is multiplication by 2. We end up with 16 here, so that means that her allowance was $16. Next we have Tom, who bought a soft drink for $4, and also he bought 6 candy bars. He spent a total of $28. We want to know how much did each candy bar cost. So the cost for one candy bar is going to be my variable. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can write an equation. All right. So we know he bought one soft drink for $4. So that's going to be our cost for the drink. He also bought 6 candy bars. So 6 candy bars, the cost of that is going to be 6C. And that all together is going to be equal to our total, which was $28. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can find that total cost. All right. We start by circling our variable group. We subtract 4 from both sides. Then we're left with 6C equals 24. Remember, when we have the coefficient next to the variable, that's multiplication. So we undo that with division, and we get 4. So each candy bar costs $4. All right. Now, these are questions that you might encounter, and basically they're just asking you what's the answer here. Okay? So all you're going to do is solve the equation and see which of those is the correct answer. So if we're going to solve, we're going to circle our variable group. We start outside the circle. We see subtraction of 7, so the opposite of that is addition by 7. Negative 7 plus 7 is 0, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And now we have negative 2x equals 16. Remember that anytime we see a coefficient right next to a variable, that's multiplication. So we undo that with division. When we divide, we have to divide by exactly the same number that we multiplied by. So here we multiplied by negative 2, which means that we need to divide by negative 2. That division cancels out to 1, so we're just left with x equals negative 8. And so the solution is negative 8. When we're asked for solution, that means what does x equal? That's our answer, that's our solution. For these types of questions, we want to know, is this number the answer? So does a equal 7? Does n equal negative 8? Does x equal 19? If we look at the first one, we again would start by circling our variable group, and now we start outside. We see negative 8, the opposite of that is plus 8. So we add 8 to both sides. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. Here we get 2a. This is multiplication. We undo that with division, and we get 7 equals a. So that was what we wanted. So yes, this is a solution. Go ahead and pause the video and try the other two equations on your own. For the middle equation here, we start outside the circle, we add 8 to both sides, then we have to multiply by 4. We get negative 8, so that means that yes, negative 8 is a solution. For the second one, remember when everything's up in the top of a fraction, we have to start by multiplying. We add 1 to both sides, we get 13, which means that no, 19 is not a solution.